Today is June 28th, Tuesday. We are discussing the Hindu. On the front page, we have a very important news related to GS papers 2 and 3 about gig workforce. There is a report by Niti Aayog and it has recommended some of the provisions for the gig workers. There are a few very important terms like platformization, some initiatives like Platform India initiatives. You should keep a track of this. The next is PM invites G7 nation to invest in clean energy. This relates to GS paper 3 and from there environment का जो section है उससे relate करता है. एक बार इसको देख सकते हैं. इस बार G7 में कौन-कौन guest members हैं. Such questions can be asked some state level exams. India के साथ-साथ South Africa, Indonesia, Argentina and Senegal are the guest members. I hope you know the location of South Africa, Indonesia, Argentina. Try to locate Senegal on the map of the world. Nothing important in those news. Try to locate these reservoir on the map of India. In the editorials, we have only one important editorial today. The editorial is written by D. Subbarao, so it becomes very important. He's a good writer and a former governor of Reserve Bank. The article is about recently in a meeting with Prime Minister, some of the officials said that our states are going down the Sri Lankan way. That means some of the state governments, their fiscal policies, their budget is in a very bad situation and they can quickly go bankrupt or they can be a big financial trouble as the Sri Lanka is. The author is identifying some of the reasons because of which these states are in such a situation. He's also suggesting some of the solutions for these. On the op-ed page, we have an article about higher to higher education. This is talking about the privatization of the higher education, where some of the deemed universities, some of the edtech players are coming, and the author is taking the stance that higher education should be free and accessible and available to all. He's also saying that the edtech industry cannot replace the brick and mortar, the face-to-face setups. And even today, most of the recruiters, most of the companies prefer to hire the students who have graduated in face-to-face mode. So instead of focusing too much upon these edtech industries, government should try to hire good teachers and try not to focus on cost cutting. The next article is about India-UAE relationships. And the author is taking the stand that India's relationship with UAE is even more important than its relationship with G7 countries, or at least the visit of Prime Minister Modi to the UAE after this G7 summit. He will be going to UAE and he says this visit will be much more important than the G7 meeting. There are some very good data about India-UAE relationship, although there was a better data a few days back in the newspaper about India-UAE relationship. If you have followed the Hindu, you might get access to that as well. But this article talks about many of the good relationships, how Prime Minister Modi has personally curated this good relationship because of its good relationship with the current ruling regime in the UAE. So you should read this for GS equal to international relations. The next article is about the significance of Sajid Mir's conviction in the Pakistan. The Hindu seems to be very much obsessed with Sajid Mir's conviction. There was an editorial yesterday and now it's on the front page as well as in the explainer. I don't see that much importance of the news. What is important for us to understand the role of Lashkar-e-Taiba, how it is different from other terrorist organizations in Pakistan like Tehreek-e-Pakistan and Jaish-e-Mohammed. Lashkar-e-Taiba is an organization which was created specifically by created by the ISI to act against India. And it is the policy of the ISI to support the non-state actors to commit acts of terrorism in India. So this relates to GS paper 3, our internal security and border management. The history of Sterlite copper plant. In Tamil Nadu, we have a Sterlite copper plant, which is a part of Vedanta Group. This copper plant has been very important for India. While it was operational, India was one of the exporters or one of the bigger exporters of copper. But because this has been shut down since 2018, India has now become a net importer. And because the prices of copper are increasing and they've increased by about 50%, it has become a thing for concern. Now, this power plant was stopped. Sorry, copper plants was stopped because of environmental concerns. Some people were protesting against it. And finally, in 2018, there was a large-scale protest in which Police opened fire and 13 civilians were killed, and after that the plant is closed. The plant was also important for phosphoric acid production. So you can read this article. This is an old article from the Hindu, from the archives. It talks about the defection of the MLA. You can go through it once, or you can wait for whatever is the situation in Maharashtra to evolve. Once there will be some clarity, we will again see articles related to defection and all. So we'll see that later. There's a keyword called economic calculation problem. This article talks about the socialist calculation debate, the debate that whether a country which is centrally planned economy, where central government takes the decision that who can do what kind of businesses, whether such a country can allocate the resources efficiently. Basically, it's talking about that whether a socialist country like China, like USSR, can exist, can they do good in the economic terms. So you can read this article as well. It's a very old debate and it's perennial, always there. There is a survey by Ministry of Education. It's called Performance Grading Index for Districts. It creates an index of the districts as per their educational performances, and Seeker in Rajasthan has topped this list. You should read about coastal security groups. In our GS paper 3 under internal security, we have to read about armed forces, various types of armed forces and their mandates. So you should read about what coastal security group do and what is their mandate. The next article is about India-Malaysia relationship. We have been discussing our defense ties. So you can go through this quickly as well. World Bank has given 250 million to boost the road safety in India. You can read about other provisions related to road safety. In the business news, Center is talking about raising the rates of this small saving accounts like PF fund and national saving certificates. So rates will be increased. You should try to understand this whole phenomena of how the GSEC yields are increasing and how they are forcing the government, or the people are thinking the government will end up increasing the interest rates of small saving schemes as well. There is a huge outflow of foreign funds from India. That means key foreign investors are taking their money out of India. You should read this article as well. GST panel may discuss states compensation, e-commerce norms. So GST panel will be meeting and it will be discussing the compensations that can be provided to the states. It will also be fixing some of the tax rates of various things like online gaming, casino, and other things. So you should keep a track of such discussions happening in the GST panel. In the world news, these 7 countries have agreed to support Ukraine as long as it takes. So they're saying it's up to the Ukraine that how long they want to fight, and if they will continue fighting, the G7 countries will stand with them. They will not put any external pressure on Ukraine to reach for any settlement or give its territory, surrender its territory to Russia. NATO is increasing the number of its troops. Again, it's a new strategic concept to focus on Russia and China. You should read about, if you do not know, you should read about what is NATO, what are its mandates, how it has come into the origin, etc. That's the end of the news today.